So today's video will go over important data that I want students in the high school class of 2021 and 2022 to some extent to consider as they apply to colleges and universities, because this is indicative of where demand was already going for selective colleges and universities prior to the pandemic. As we already know, demand for those colleges and universities is already going to be extremely soft just because of the pandemic, and colleges have in reaction to the pandemic reduced the hurdles to admission, like becoming test optional when before they were test required. In some cases, colleges becoming full-fledged test blind in order to stabilize what they fear will be a plummeting number of applications as a result of soft demand that was already making itself known and clear prior to the coronavirus pandemic. So let's go through this, because the most interesting statistics I can share with you are the application numbers, or the change in application numbers from the 2018-2019 admission cycle to the 2019-2020 admission cycle, particularly for early decision. Very interesting numbers indeed. And while there were some colleges that saw an increase in demand, the very shishi colleges, the most selective colleges, in most cases, in fact, saw a dip in demand. So that's why there's such panic on the part of enrollment managers and admissions deans, because the demand for selective, quote unquote, selective college or university education was already getting soft prior to the pandemic. Let's go through the numbers that back me up. Dartmouth College. Dartmouth saw a nearly 20% decline in early decision applications from 2018-19 admission cycle to the 2019-2020 admission cycle. That is amazing. Duke saw a nearly 13% drop in applications coming in early decision in 2019-2020 admission cycle compared to the cycle before. Georgetown saw a 6.8% drop in restrictive early action demand. Harvard saw an 8.31% drop in demand for their single choice or restrictive early action. MIT saw a 3.3% drop in demand. Penn saw a 10% roughly change in application numbers on the downward side. So 10% fewer students were applying early decision in fall 2019 compared to fall 2018. Rice saw a huge drop, almost 30%, 28.7% drop in demand for early decision. And even Yale, which offers single choice early action, saw a drop in demand of 4.14% for that admissions plan at Penn. Now, the overall ED or EA acceptance rates of some of these schools, again, very noteworthy to share. Some of the highest are those who've recently converted to ED. So in the case of a school like Boston College, which has recently introduced early decision, they had a 37% admit rate for early decision. That's a huge percentage of students who are getting in ED. So it's very advantageous to apply to Boston College ED over regular. Boston University had 30%, again, acceptance rate ED. Brown had a 17.5% acceptance rate ED compared to a regular acceptance rate of 5.38. Cornell University had a 23% acceptance rate ED compared to a far lower one. I don't have that number, but trust me, it's far lower for regular. Another one that's of interest, Duke, 20% acceptance rate ED compared to 6.12% regular. Harvard, 13.9% for their restrictive or single choice early action acceptance rate compared to 3.21% regular. It's very hard to get into that school at any point, but oh my gosh, much, much harder. 3.21% regular admit rate at Harvard this year. Johns Hopkins, 28.4% ED. That's because Johns Hopkins, while a very selective and competitive school, once you get there, tough place, that is a school that does not have nearly as much demand for as a first choice school. Let's face it. And in Johns Hopkins is early decision. They have an overall acceptance rate during the regular cycle, not overall, but regular acceptance rate of 7%. Penn, their regular acceptance rate was 5.97%. Penn is one of the leading indicators in terms of early decision. They popularized it. They made it a thing because of their enrollment management techniques. Penn's early decision acceptance rate was 19.7%. So still much easier to get in statistically ED than regular at Penn. Rice had an 18.9% acceptance rate, lower than even Penn's early decision, but they have a higher regular acceptance rate of 9.16. UVA, 34.7% acceptance rate for EA. They're going to start, ED. They are going to continue with their ED option this coming year. They had a 19.83% regular acceptance rate. WashU traditionally accepts a very high percentage of students ED, 36% in the 1920 admission cycle, and their overall regular decision acceptance rate is 9.96%, and Yale had a 13.8% single choice early action acceptance rate, and regular was 5.12%. I should add one more fun one to add, which is USC, which, some people will call it still, as always, the University of Spoiled Children, as we've heard from the admission scandals of recent months and years. You can bet that had an effect on the demand for USC education, because a lot of students want to be associated with that, especially if they're strong students who can earn their way into a strong college. So as a result, I should add that University of Southern California saw a total admit rate of 15.83%. They don't offer ED. They only offer regular. Their change in total applications was 10% fewer total applications from the year before. Because, again, the scandal is catching up with USC, and there's going to be a dip in demand. It will go back up, but because of all the negative stuff in the news about USC, they saw a real dip in total application numbers, and their total admit rate increased as a result of this 4.83%. Enrollment managers don't want to publicize such a number. An increase in a total admit rate makes it appear that you're becoming quite less selective when it's higher than 3 or 4%. In the case of the University of Southern California, for their admit rate to go up a full 4.83% in one admission cycle shows that they really lost the plot and lost control of their enrollment management techniques as a result of things that they were not properly planning for. Middlebury saw an 8.95% increase in their total acceptance rate. Even the Ivies, again, because there's a softening of demand, saw increases in their total admit rates. Brown saw a 1.1% increase in their total admit rate. Columbia saw a 1% increase in their total admit rate. Dartmouth, 0.9% total increase in their admit rate, roughly. Harvard, 0.42% increase in their total admit rate. I mentioned Duke earlier. They saw a 0.52% increase in their total admit rate, and so on and so forth. Penn saw a 0.63% increase in their total admit rate. Same thing at Yale. Goodness gracious. Wesleyan saw a 4% increase in their total admit rate. So again, colleges are becoming, on average, less selective, predating the pandemic. I predict that colleges will become even less selective this coming year because all bets are off. But I may be wrong, because so many more students may think they have a real shot at getting into these selective schools because they've all gone test optional, or in some cases test blind. And that makes students feel like, all their A's, which are inflated anyway, most high schools now give A's, will give them a real shot of getting in. And I wouldn't be surprised if colleges take them up on that in order to increase their geographic and other forms of diversity, because now they don't have to be weighted down by objective data like test scores when they go test optional. So it'll be very interesting to see how colleges and universities' acceptance rates change from 2019-2020 admission cycle to the 2020-21 admission cycle. If you are a member of the class of 2021 in high school, good luck. You're navigating uncharted waters. It's definitely a plus in your column that you don't have to submit test scores. I always say do submit test scores if you have strong ones, though, because a lot of these schools did not go test blind. They went test optional. So they're still going to look at test scores from strong test takers. So submit those scores if you can take them and earn them. But in the case of the negative column for you, there could be a huge groundswell of demand from other students who would never consider applying to an Ivy League level school or similar, because they think, well, look, I got basically A minuses, basically straight across the board. I'm a real contender. Whereas before they would take the SAT or ACT and see they got a 24 or see they got a 12, 20 or much, much lower. And they would say, I have no business applying to these schools, and their college guidance counselors would say the same thing. But this year, all bets are off, because that objective reality is gone, and we're no longer living in an objective reality. We're living in a clown world. So enjoy the 2019-2020 admissions cycle the last few days as kids get off the wait list, and good luck to those students who are foraying into the 2020-21 admissions cycle. It should be a doozy. Good luck.